The 1971 Mercedes 280 SL always smelled like old leather and gasoline, the kind collectors call character. Tonight, it smelled like trouble. My shop lights buzzed. The hood was up. I'd been kneeling beside the open bay for 20 minutes, listening to a soft knock that didn't match the rhythm of a healthy engine. Heat rolled off the block into my forearms. Behind me, heels tapped, once then stopped. "It's not going to make it, is it?" Elena asked. I glanced over my shoulder. White top, dark skirt hair tucked behind one ear like she'd done it on autopilot 100 times. Her face stayed composed, but her fingers worried the clasp of her clutch until the metal flashed. "The fuel pump relay is dead," I said. "If you drive it to town, it'll quit on Route 9. She looked past me at her car like it had betrayed her. "I have a blind date in 40 minutes. Her phone buzzed again, and the screen lighting her palm. "Julian set it up," she added, voice low. "If I don't show, he'll be at the board meeting tomorrow with a story." She didn't say she was scared. She didn't have to. The way she held her shoulders square while her breathing went shallow did the job for her. I stood, wiped my hands on a rag, and didn't soften the truth. "I'm not letting you get stranded in the dark," I said. Elena let out a breath that came out sharp. "So I'm stuck." Iron and Grit Restorations was a converted barn at the edge of town. The wealthy liked bringing their classics out here because it felt rustic and safe, like their problems couldn't follow them down a dirt road. My workbench was clean. My ledger was cleaner. I'd built my reputation on two things. I fixed what I touched, and I didn't talk about what I saw. Elena had been a client for 6 months. Every time she showed up, she carried the weight of her firm like it was strapped to her back. "I'm not saying you're stuck," I said. "I'm saying the Mercedes is." Same result. "I've got a truck," I said, nodding toward the restored 78 F-150 in the next bay. "I can get you there." From the office, my younger brother Leo leaned out with a sandwich in his hand. "Take her, Kane. You've been glaring at that relay like it's going to apologize." I shot him a look. He disappeared laughing. Elena checked her phone again. Her mouth tightened. "Julian," I asked. She didn't answer with a name. She answered with a tired exhale. "He's already texting," she said, sliding the phone back into her clutch. He wrote, "Hope the mechanic didn't slow you down." The way she said mechanic sounded like she was repeating someone else's insult. "Let me wash up," I said. "Then we go." I scrubbed my hands with orange pumice soap until the water ran clear. When I stepped back into the bay, Elena stood at the open door, looking out into the early autumn dusk. Wind pushed leaves across the concrete. She rubbed her bare arms once like she hated that she needed to. I took my flannel off the hook clean, thank God, and held it out. "It's cold," I said. She hesitated, then slid her arms into the sleeves. The jacket swallowed her. She pulled it close and inhaled quiet. "Cedar," she said almost to herself. "And your shop." The truck warmed fast. The cab was small. The heater hummed. Before I pulled onto the main road, I reached across the bench seat and nudged the passenger lever, sliding her seat back a notch so her knees weren't jammed against the dash. I didn't make a show of it. I just did it. Elena noticed anyway. She settled in, exhaling like she'd been bracing without realizing it. At a stoplight, she stared straight ahead, like she was watching her life through glass. "You know what's funny," she said. "I don't even want this date. Julian loves perfect on paper people." "Then don't go," I said. She finally looked at me. "It's not that simple." Her phone buzzed again. She didn't pick it up. "I cancel," she said, voice dropping, "and he turns it into me being unstable. He's been doing that for years. Little comments, little concerns." We rolled forward. The light turned green. Elena still didn't look away. "The car's broken," she said, a quick edge of humor slipping in like a shield. "So, if I cancel, will you be my date?" My hands tightened on the wheel. I kept my eyes on the road. "You're dressed for a fundraiser," I said. "And you're dressed for an engine bay," she said. "We'll survive." I could have driven her to the bistro and watched her walk into Julian's setup. Instead, I flicked the turn signal and made a clean U-turn away from town. "I know a place," I said. Her lips curved. Not big. Real. Sal's was a roadside diner with vinyl booths, neon beer signs, and fries that came out too hot to touch. Neutral ground. Elena kept my flannel on her shoulders, sitting straighter than she needed to. The locals noticed, then pretended not to. She dipped a fry into her milkshake and shook her head once. "This is criminal." "You ordered it," I said. "I didn't know it was a thing. It's a good thing." She laughed, a short sound like she'd forgotten she still could. Halfway through, her burger ketchup smeared at the corner of her mouth. She reached for a napkin and found none. Before she could ask, I slid the metal dispenser closer with 2 fingers, then turned my attention back to my plate like it wasn't anything. Elena froze, then pulled a napkin and wiped her mouth, her eyes softening for a half-second before she hid it behind a sip of water. The bell over the door chimed. Elena's shoulders tightened. Julian came in with 2 committee types and a woman I recognized from the planning board. He was loud before he even reached our booth. He spotted Elena, then me, and his smile sharpened. "Elena," he said, leaning in like he owned the air. "There you are." I was worried the car trouble was serious. His gaze slid over my gray t-shirt and work-worn hands like he was inspecting a stain. "And this is the mechanic," he added, saying the word like it came with a smell. Elena's voice went crisp. "Kane is giving me a ride." Julian's eyebrows lifted. How generous. "Don't forget the board meeting tomorrow, darling. We need to address your reliability." He reached for the edge of the table like he was about to pat her hand. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't stand up. I picked up my water, took a slow sip, and watched him. Julian's jaw flexed. His cheeks reddened like calm made him itch. As he shifted, his hip bumped the waitress passing with a tray. A glass tipped toward Elena's white top. I moved once, caught it mid-air, set it down without a splash. Julian blinked like he'd missed the moment his little scene stopped being about him. Elena stared at the steady glass and then at me. "Thanks," she said softly. Julian mumbled an apology to the waitress, then turned back, smile forced. Try not to get grease on her cane. I met his eyes and said nothing. Elena leaned a fraction closer to me after he walked away, like her body had decided where safe was. The Mercedes needed more work. It was true, but we let the timeline stretch longer than necessary. Elena started stopping by the shop in the evenings. She'd perch on a stool near my workbench, cup of coffee in both hands, and watch me work like she was studying a language she'd always wanted to learn. The first time she tried to help, she reached for a wrench like she'd seen men do in movies, too fast, wrong grip. I set my hand over hers, guided her wrist to the right angle, then let go. No lecture, just the motion. "Feel it," I said. "Don't fight it." She turned the bolt careful. When it moved, her eyes widened like she'd just learned her own strength. "Okay," she said quietly. "That's satisfying." I slid a folded shop towel onto the stool before she sat down the next night, cushioning the hard metal. She noticed, said nothing, and used it anyway. Outside the shop, the town tried to make us a story. A client asked if I was busy with Elena's project, in a tone that wasn't about cars. I looked him dead in the eye and handed him his estimate. Cash price, parts list, Labor hours. The man's face went hot. He paid and left. One night she showed up late, breathing a little fast, a roll of blueprints tucked under her arm. She didn't announce herself. She just stood in the doorway for a second, taking in the smell of solvent and warm metal, like it was the only place in town that didn't ask her to perform. I killed the air compressor, wiped my hands, and set a second stool beside mine without asking. I slid a pair of clear safety glasses across the bench. Then I poured coffee into a spare mug and set it within reach, handle turned toward her. Elena looked down at the glasses, then at the mug. "You keep doing that," she said. "Doing what?" "Making it easy to breathe," she answered, and then cleared her throat like she hadn't meant to say it out loud. She put the glasses on, pushed her hair back, and sat. When a stray curl fell forward again, she fumbled for a clip that wasn't there. I reached to the bench, found a clean elastic band from my parts drawer, and nudged it to her fingertips. No comment. No smile. She tied her hair up quiet and watched me work like the sound of a ratchet was a language she trusted. One Saturday, Elena called with her voice too steady. "It's making a different sound," she said. "Can you look at it here? I don't want to limp it back." So I went. Her driveway was bright with late sun. Stone and glass behind us. The Mercedes sat with the hood up like an open wound. I leaned into the engine bay's shoulders, filling the space, my gray t-shirt darkening with sweat between the shoulder blades. I traced wiring with a flashlight, listening with my fingertips more than my ears. Elena stood to the right of the car, arms crossed, watching me with that small, amused smile that made my shop feel smaller. "You look like you're mad at it," she said. "I'm listening," I answered, still under the hood. She shifted her weight. The smile stayed. "Julian keeps calling," she said. "He asks if I'm okay. Like I'm a fragile vase." My fingers found something that didn't belong. A strip of fresh black tape along the harness, too neat, too new. I didn't announce it. I didn't spook her. I slipped on nitrile gloves, peeled the tape back, and found a small magnetic box tucked against the frame rail. Elena's smile fell off her face. "What is that?" I held it up where she could see it. "A tracker." Her hand went to her pocket for her phone. I lifted one finger stop, not harsh, just clear, and pulled mine out first. I took a photo of the device in place, then another with my gloved hand holding it. Then one beside the VIN plate under the hood. I texted the photos to myself and to her. The timestamps popped up on screen. I slid the tracker into a zip bag, pressed the seal closed, and wrote the date and time on the label with a marker. Elena swallowed. "We call the police." "Not yet," I said, keeping my tone flat. "If we go in with a story, Julian calls it a misunderstanding. We go in with a package that doesn't change." She stared at the bag, then nodded once. "Okay. Tell me what to do." I didn't hand her a speech. I handed her tasks. "Don't mention it on the phone," I said. "Don't leave the car unlocked. And don't let Julian be alone with your devices." She exhaled through her nose like she hated that it made sense. "Fine." Back at the shop that night, I pulled the exterior camera footage from my DVR and backed it up. I printed the last 6 invoices for Elena's work at standard rates, paid by check. Nothing special. Nothing cute, just clean. I also laid the tracker on a white shop rag, took close-ups of the casing and the seam lines, then used a small flathead to open it carefully. Inside was a tiny board, a SIM slot, and a printed serial number. I photographed the serial number with the date visible on my laptop screen in the background, and then wrote it down in my shop log with a pen that left an indent. Elena watched me do it the next evening, silent eyes following every step, like she was watching someone build a wall in real time. The charity auction was the biggest event of the season. Elena invited me, and she didn't dress it up. "They're unveiling the Galloway Gate," she said. You rebuilt half of it. You should see it stand. I bought a suit, trimmed my beard, showed up. Elena's hand rested on my forearm as we moved through the room. She wasn't gripping. She wasn't hiding. She was simply there. A board member intercepted her near the silent auction table, smiling too wide. "Elena, are you all right?" the woman asked. "We've missed you at the lunches." Elena smiled back, polite, tight. "I'm fine." The woman's eyes flicked to me. "And this is Kane," Elena said, steady. "He restored the Galloway gate." The woman's smile held, but her gaze stayed sharp. How industrious. Elena's fingers tightened on my sleeve once, then relaxed. She didn't look at me for help. She kept her chin up and led us forward. For 20 minutes, it felt manageable. Then heads turned. Phones lit up like a wave. A laugh in the corner sounded wrong. Elena's phone buzzed. Her face drained. What I asked, stepping close enough to block the room from her view. She turned the screen toward me. A photo. Us in the shop the night she'd fallen asleep in the customer chair. I'd thrown my coat around her shoulders before locking up. The angle shot through the window made it look like my mouth was near her neck. A caption on an anonymous gossip page mocked her. Mocked me. Mocked the whole thing. Elena's fingers trembled. She tucked the phone to her chest like she could crush the rumor inside it. "My clients," she said, voice tight. "The Galloways have a morality clause." Across the room, Julian stood with a champagne flute watching. He lifted it slightly like a toast. Elena's jaw clenched. Her eyes shone, but she didn't let them spill. I touched her elbow just enough to stop her from walking straight at him. "Come with me," I said. "I can't just leave," she whispered. "If I bolt, it looks," I didn't finish her sentence for her. I just guided her toward the exit, one steady step at a time. When we hit cooler air outside, she finally took a full breath. At her house, Elena paced the living room. Once then stopped like she realized pacing didn't solve anything. A drink sat on the counter untouched. "They're going to say I did this for attention," she said. "Or that I'm paying you in something else." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. "I have invoices," I said. "Job logs, deposits, video. That helps in court," she said. "It doesn't help in a room full of people who already decided." Her phone buzzed again. She didn't look at it. She stared at the window like she could see Julian's car on the street. "I should keep my distance," she said, voice flat with practicality. "For a bit." I didn't plead. I didn't get dramatic. I nodded once. "If that's what you want." Elena's throat moved. She looked away, then back. "It's what I have to do." I left. The next week I worked 16-hour days and kept my head down. Leo tried to talk. I told him I was busy. The gossip still spread. A customer canceled a job without meeting my eyes. Another asked, half joking, if I was taking payment in other ways. I handed him the printed estimate with the parts list circled. He shut up. Midweek, Elena called and hung up before the second ring. A minute later, she texted, "Galloway wants a meeting. Tomorrow, noon." I showed up at the Galloway estate in a plain button-down, hands-clean folder under my arm. Elena met me at the gate I'd restored. The ironwork glinted in daylight. She looked like she hadn't slept, but she stood tall. "I didn't ask you to come," she said quietly. "I know," I said. "I'm here anyway." Inside the garden room, Mr. Galloway held a printed screenshot of the gossip post like it was a legal document. "My family doesn't do scandal," he said. Elena opened her mouth. I stepped forward, first set my folder on the table and opened it. "Sir," I said, "I'm Kane Mercer. Here's the job log for your gate. Dated photos of the damage, the repairs, the install. Here are the invoices. Standard rate, paid by check. Mr. Galloway flipped through slowly like he was trying not to look interested. His eyes paused on the photos of warped hinges, the weld beads the finished line, straight as a ruler. And the photo, he asked. I slid another page forward, still images from my exterior cameras. A sedan parked across the street for 2 hours, date and time burned into the corner. The angle matched the gossip shot. Elena's breath caught when she saw it. She hadn't known I had that. Mr. Galloway's eyes narrowed. Who was that? Elena's voice went flat. Julianne. Mr. Galloway closed the folder, then looked at Elena like he was weighing her. You have 48 hours, he said. Then we proceed with the contract. Or we don't. Outside, Elena stopped under the shadow of the ironwork rain gutter, dripping softly from an earlier shower. You walked into that room like you belonged there, she said. I didn't answer with a line. I reached into my pocket and handed her a printed copy of the camera still date and time visible the sedan, clear enough to make a point. She took it with both hands. Keep that, I said. She nodded, jaw tight. 2 days later, I went to the hardware store for bolts and heard Julian in the next aisle laughing too loudly. She always wants to be different, Julian said to a friend. Then she acts shocked when people notice. My grip tightened on the box until the cardboard bent. Before I rounded the corner, Elena's voice cut through the aisle. Actually, Julian. She stood there with a folder under her arm. No flinch, no smile. Just clean, steady eye contact. I'm done being your prop, she said. Pick somebody else. Julian's grin twitched. Elena, relax. Elena lifted the folder and tapped it once. You planted a tracker on my car. You paid someone to take photos through a shop window. I've got it bagged, labeled, and logged. Julian laughed thin. Sure you do. Elena's gaze didn't move. Keep talking and my attorney files defamation Monday morning. Julian's friend stared at him like he'd just realized he was standing next to a liability. Elena turned and walked away, without waiting for permission. I stayed behind the shelf, watching her shoulders hold steady all the way to the door. That night, the sky opened up. An autumn storm hammered the valley. The shop power flickered once, then held. Rain slapped the metal roof hard enough to drown out the radio. I was locking the bay doors when headlights cut through the downpour. The Mercedes rolled into the gravel lot, tires hissing. The engine sounded smooth. Elena stepped out without a coat. Rain soaked her in seconds. I ran to her, grabbed her wrist, and pulled her under the overhang. You're going to catch pneumonia, I said. Elena yanked her hand free, not to leave, but to step closer. Water streamed down her hair. Makeup softened. Her eyes stayed sharp. Julian called me twice tonight, she said. Like I'm supposed to answer. Thunder cracked. The light over the bay door flickered. I'm not doing that anymore, she said. I'm not standing there while he talks over me. I watched her face and the way she held her ground in the rain. If you want to walk away, I said, do it now. Elena held my gaze. She didn't step back. She stepped forward, rising onto her toes, closing the last inch herself. That was all I needed. I kissed her slow first, giving her space to change her mind. She didn't. She answered immediately, one hand sliding to my jaw, pulling me in like she'd already made the call and wasn't apologizing for it. Inside the shop, I dried her hair with clean shop towels, because that's what I had. I handed her a spare t-shirt and turned my back while she pulled it on. When she sat on the stool, I nudged a space heater closer to her legs and turned it up one click without a word. Elena wrapped her hands around a mug of coffee I poured from my thermos. Her fingers had stopped shaking. We still have to deal with this, she said, nodding toward her phone. We will, I said. I opened the office safe and pulled out the folder I'd been building. Elena stared at it. "You've been working on this." I set it on the workbench and opened it. Invoices first, payment records next, job logs after that. Each page dated each total matching what went into my bank. Then I placed the zip bag on top the tracker, inside label, clear date, and time neat. Elena exhaled through her nose, something between relief and fury. I pulled up my laptop and played the exterior camera footage. The sedan across the street, 2 hours. A figure stepping out, phone lifted toward the shop window. "You can't see his face," Elena said. "Not his face," I agreed. "But we can see his car, and we can see enough of the plate to narrow it down." I handed her a pen. "Initial the printouts," I said. "Every page. Your attorney will like it." She blinked. "You want me to—" "Sign it. I want you to be part of the paper trail," I said. Elena nodded and started initialing her signature neat, even with tired hands. Before sunrise, I drove to the gas station Julian liked. His sedan sat under the canopy lights, spotless except for the mud packed into the tire grooves. I didn't touch the car. I didn't get clever. I crouched at a respectful distance and took photos of the tread pattern. I compared it to the still from my shop camera. Same groove layout, same wear mark on the outer edge. Then I went to the convenience store across the street and asked the owner, Mr. Patel, if he still had camera coverage for the last week. Mr. Patel didn't hand me a private file and walk away. He stood beside me while we exported the relevant 10-minute clip onto a USB. When it finished, he wrote a note with the date and time range and signed it. By noon, we were in Elena's attorney's office. A plain room, fluorescent lights, a printer humming like an engine that wouldn't quit. Her attorney didn't flatter us. He didn't promise miracles. He pushed a legal pad across the desk and started listing what we had and what we didn't. "Tracker," he said, "bagged and labeled. Photos with VIN." "Good." "Security stills," he said, tapping the printouts. "Date and time visible." "Good." "CCTV export," he said, holding up Mr. Patel's note. "Signed. Better than good." He looked at Elena. "You don't confront him alone. You don't warn him. You let the process do its job." Elena's jaw tightened. "I can do that." The attorney nodded, then looked at me. "And you don't touch his car again." "I didn't touch it," I said. He slid 2 manila envelopes across the desk. 2 complete sets. One stays with me. One stays with you. If anything goes missing, we still have it. We spent an hour printing, labeling, and copying. Elena's signature appeared on every page. Mine appeared on a statement describing when and how the tracker was found. No flourish. Just the truth. When we stepped back outside, Elena drew in a breath that sounded like she'd been holding it for days. 3 days later, the architects' board held their monthly gala. Elena wore a dress that looked like liquid silver. I wore my suit, and I didn't hide my hands. They were what they were. When we walked in together, conversations shifted. People tracked us with their eyes the way they tracked money. Julian stood near the center, smiling like he'd never heard a rumor he didn't like. When he saw us, his mouth curved in something that tried to be amused. "Elena," he said, loud enough to catch attention. Bringing the mechanic again, Elena didn't flinch. "Kane is my guest," she said. Julian leaned closer, voice dropping. "The board hates drama." Elena opened her folder and set it on the table in front of him. The sound of it landing was small. The room still heard it. "This is an ethics complaint," she said. A few board members stepped in without pretending they weren't curious. Elena spoke plain and steady. Invoices, payment records, job logs, security footage, and a GPS tracker pulled off my car. Julian's smile slipped. He tried to laugh it back into place. "That's ridiculous," he said. I met his eyes calm. Then you won't mind them reviewing it. The board chair, a woman with steel gray hair, picked up the folder and didn't smile. We'll review this tonight, she said, immediately. Julian's throat moved. He looked around for support and found people suddenly busy staring at the walls. Elena turned away from him like he was already handled. She reached for my hand. Can we go? She asked. I'm starving. Outside, the air was cool and clean after the storm. The Mercedes waited under the streetlights, paint beading with leftover rain. You drive, Elena said, tossing me the keys. I caught them. Warm metal. Simple trust. At Sal's, the cook slid 2 plates onto the table. Burgers, stacked high fries, steaming, the smell of salt and seared meat filling the booth. Elena took 1 bite, eyes closing for half a second, like her body had finally unclenched. Then she laughed, quiet, surprised, and real. She reached across the table and hooked her fingers around mine. Her hand was warm now. Steady. No speeches, no slogans. Just the hum of the diner, the heat of the food, and the soft weight of her grip telling me she meant it.